Okay, right. So thank you everyone for being with us today. We have now Ian Kendrick and John Waters, who are from the Metaforum Steering Committee, presenting the project that they have been developing for the last few months. So very nice to have you with us. And I think Ian and John, you should introduce yourselves for those that don't know you well. We'll have the same format as usual. They will have very likely less than 45 minutes to present their presentation, the proposal, and then we'll have the rest of the time to discuss it. So it's all yours, Ian, John?
John, do you want to say hi first?
I might as well. Okay, I'm John Waters. I think I've met most of you. My involvement with Metaforum is more as a very interested amateur in the field of cybernetics. I'm one of the non-academics, but I apply the VSM throughout every aspect of my life, and I can't not see it wherever I go. Now, most of the last 30 years, I've spent dealing with different aspects of community economics. At the same time, I've also been using open source software at different levels, not just as a user, but also as a developer and a systems integrator. So I'm quite familiar with the kind of technology that we're going to be looking at and how to assess it and how to explore its capabilities. All you need to know about me for now. I'm going to pass you over to Ian.
Thanks, John. My name's Ian. Here I am. Hello. I think I know most people here, actually. At least we've met. My background goes back a long way in computing, back to the 1970s. But in the 1990s, I had the privilege of leading a team looking at how technology would support what we do around about now. It was a 20-year look ahead project on strategic scenario thinking. What we weren't looking for is what actually emerged out of that work, which is that it forecast the emergence of online communities. And it started off by identifying eBay, who had just come into existence, and the reasons why eBay would become successful. Then it defined Amazon before Amazon existed. Then the work defined something that was identical to Facebook in terms of how the technology would allow us all to integrate and how to interact with each other. And then we saw Kickstarter, even though that didn't exist, but we described it. But the last step that we figured would emerge with communities was what we called ethos cohered communities. That is a community that is cohered, kept together, held together, cohered by a shared ethos, which wasn't making money, which wasn't religion, which wasn't sex. It would be something else. It would be a higher level of ethos. One of the ones we identified was music initially, because that connects a lot of people together. And then the other thing that we identified was actually helping to address the situation on our planet. And very specifically, that actually the human condition is often dominated by a core few, referred to often as the elite, that actually decide what's going to happen and so on and so forth. And the rest of us don't have the agency to change it much. But if we actually cohere via an ethos and interact with each other, then maybe we can help shift that variety. If we're familiar with the concept of variety, especially Ashby's law of requisite variety, that only variety can absorb variety, I can't absorb the variety of the system that is dominating us right now. I don't have enough variety to do that. I suspect that none of us do, but actually if we work together, we can generate more variety. So that was the idea of an ethos cohered community. Came across Metaforum 15 years ago, I think now, and recognized immediately an ethos cohered community. It's exactly what Metaforum is. It sort of fits that pattern. And so my interest came together with the ethos cohered community and Metaforum. And that's what, for me, led to the suggestion coming out of Leuven last year. What about an online community? And of course, Hans-Peter Plarg and Barry Clemson were there as well last year. with place for us, and we'll talk a little about that as well. So that's sort of the background to what we're going to talk about. I'm going to start sharing screen right now. In terms of the pace of how we go through this, we don't want to go too fast, but we don't want to go too slow. I know that I've been told regularly I talk too quickly. So if I am, please stick your hand up and say slow down, okay? And if I do that, I just apologize in advance. Questions, we'll have a place for questions and answers towards in about 40 minutes or so. But if you have a question that you want to log for us to answer, please use the chat box and we'll keep an eye on that as well, okay? Lastly, in terms of the sort of factors to consider, the slide deck we will use will be put online for everybody to access. And that will include a few slides that we're not necessarily going to include in the slide set tonight, okay? Or today. Okay, to proceed, should we carry on?
Yep.
Great, okay. I'll start sharing my screen right now, and I will go there. And I'll put that into slideshow mode. So here we are. This is about an online community platform for Metaforum. This is the image that John actually came up with of what it's all about to work together in this way. If we work together, we can all climb higher and faster than if we try to do it alone. So that's what the platform is about helping us to do exactly that. Now, what are we going to talk about here today? Well, the first thing we're going to talk about is the identification of the need. Why do we feel that we need such a platform? I don't know about everybody else here, but I suffer from platform fatigue because I have so many platforms that I have to be a member of with all the work that I do that my immediate reaction to another platform is, oh no, not another platform, okay? However, we believe that this is worthwhile, and we'll go into that further as we go along. Next, we're going to talk about an overview of our search. We search for an inexpensive and replicable platform that is one that we can use again and again in different communities and to support large-scale cooperation. And what we're going to talk about and show you is an example that can be applied immediately at a very modest scale, which is actually to do with supporting the special interest groups in Metaforum. Now, for those of you who attended the conference in Manchester may recall that the end on the Saturday of 10th of June on the afternoon, we talked about special interest groups. And there were suggestions for 9 or 10 special interest groups that the community would like to have to be able to discuss a specific topic, to support it with documentation, have interactions, meetings, and so on. So we're going to talk about that. We'll also look at a more ambitious application, which is about supporting the meta system within a larger organization, okay? Now, my guess would be that all of us here are familiar with the VSM. So the idea of meta system is just that. Perhaps we could use it for that, don't know yet. And also an example of an even larger scale application, how the platform might be used as part of, we're calling it the meta-systemic skeleton, but actually, Metaforum is an ethos-cohered community. Its ethos is shared by other communities working in the same kind of space. And if we can help those communities come together as an overall community, an overall systemic community, then their agency will be amplified even more. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk through in the call right now. Let's get started. Let's just think about Metaforum. What is Metaforum? Well, it's got a lot of simultaneous complex dialogues going on. Okay, there's a lot of them going on. Certainly both before and after the conference, there's been a lot going on. And email and social media don't really provide sufficient capabilities to track those dialogues and to support them with the information that they need as they go along and as people come in and come out of the dialogues. It's an ethos-cohered community. It's sort of archetypical of an ethos-cohered community. It has many different skill sets. It's got different experience levels. It has different network connections amongst its membership. So if you look at the power of a network, the individual members of the network have their own network. And if all those get connected together, then everything ramps up in terms of variety. It's developed a range of facilities, which includes conferences, as we know, webinars. Here we are in a webinar. It has lots of case studies. It has far more case studies than I realized in conversation with Angela. I didn't realize we had so many case studies in Metaforum. There are presentations, there are papers, and so on. The membership, we believe the membership would benefit if these were all connected coherently so you could find them as a resource. It's a prominent member of the wider cybernetic community. And all of that community strives to bring cybernetics into the mainstream infrastructure to address the word problematique. I realize it's a Club of Rome expression, the word problematique, but I think it fits, okay? We look for a platform that can address all of the above and more. Now, our search for a platform. I'm not doing a build on this slide because this is a core slide. We looked at many candidates through a set of key selection criteria. One, easy to configure and customize. We don't want something that needs deep, deep technical skills to be able to customize it. We want to be able to configure it easily and quickly. We wanted recursive nesting of categories, and groups, and dialogues to represent the kind of systemic recursive structures that we're used to working with. Moderation and administration, my experience working with online platforms, which as well as researching them, I've done a lot of work actually working with them, working with large membership platforms, that actually moderation and administration is essential. Moderation, partly about creating groups, partly about feedback, partly about connecting members, but what's essential also is to have a code of conduct for members, for moderators, and for administrators, so that we get consistent and fair moderation. When we start doing it the first time we've done a platform, that seems like an unnecessary thing, but actually the experience says it's essential. We wanted to see either an open source platform or one that includes close access to developers. The migration, the ability to export content in a standard open format. Again, from experience, we know that over time, you tend to shift from one platform to the next platform, which gives you more capability, more capacity, whatever it turns out to be. Being able to migrate is really important. In IT world, it's called generating switching costs. Software companies like to generate costs that says, if you want to switch away from us, it's going to cost you a lot to do so. We were looking for the opposite, the ability to do that easily. It needs to be easy to find and join. No previous knowledge required. We need to have a detailed user profile to include interests. So imagine you're coming into the forum, you'd want to say, these are my interests, this is my experience, these are my activities, and so on, so that other people can find you, just the same way you'd like to find other people. You're going to be able to search topics, keywords, capabilities. I'm looking for people who know about this in this community. You need to search for members. There needs to be messaging within groups, mailing lists, but within groups with mailing lists, globally across the whole community or just targeted. And the attachment or archiving of media is essential. And you might want to do that in a particular topic, or you might want to do it on the whole platform. And lastly, item 11, multi-community support. Our view was that was going to be very, very difficult for us to be able to find. We were not expecting to be able to find it. I worked with organizations that do that, and the costs can go very high indeed. Okay. Now, there. I want to talk briefly about Place for Us. Hans-Peter Plagge is with us this evening, and Place for Us told us about their platform at Leuven of last year. That was an initial candidate for us, for our platform, and we look at it very positively. What we said then and what we say now is we fully support and we align and resonate with the vision of Place for Us and the trajectory they're entering and still on. It's currently at an early stage of development and release, and that's actually been said to us. And we offered, and we still offer to work with Place for Us and share our platform learning as we go. And we see Place for Us as having the strategic potential we too identify as fully relevant. Again, it's an ethos cohered community, but we needed to find a platform that was ready to go and meet our key selection criteria. And the one we found for that, we only found one that would actually get close to meeting all of the criteria, and that's FUD Forum. Now, what I want to really emphasize here is that the approach that we took to this selection was one of due diligence. That is, being diligent about looking at being diligent about defining our criteria, looking for them, and deciding whether or not we found something that will do the job. It was not a very rapid process. It took us some time, but the conclusion that we came to is that we should proceed with this thing called FUD Forum. I have to say, before anybody else, if you're thinking it, in my world, FUD stands for fear, uncertainty, and doubt, okay, which is not a good name for something, really. In this world, it stands for fast, uncompromised discussions, if I remember the acronym correctly. So that's what this is about with FUD Forum. I'm going to hand over to John now to talk us through FUD Forum and take us on to the next stage. So John, I'll stop the share, or I can carry on the share and press the buttons when you ask me. Which would you prefer?
Carry on sharing. It's easier. Thank you, Ian. Right. It wasn't easy to find something. We did examine several candidates, most of them much prettier and more modern than the one we ended up with. What we actually have chosen is rather old-fashioned looking, a rather ugly piece of software, really, on the outside, but it can do things that the others can't. Most importantly, it can support recursively nested categories, each of which can hold multiple forums, each of which can then hold many, many different conversations. It also, as a side benefit, can be connected to mailing lists, a separate one for each conversation if needed, each forum. But that's a further stage. It's just an additional convenience for interaction. Oh, something's disappeared. It's gone blank.
Sorry, that I do apologize, folks. That's me opening up my notebook computing and deciding that it doesn't want to, it's taking control of my Zoom. What do you see now, folks? Forgive me, I do apologize.
Right, can we just go back to the FUD Forum slide?
Yeah, give me a moment. There, my apologies, everybody. It won't happen again.
Problem. We really wanted something that we could just get up and running without any fuss, which wasn't going to cost anything extra, which wasn't going to involve a lot of additional work. We needed something which was very easy for people to configure and administer without any special skills. And we needed it to be accessible with any devices that people use. It has to work just as well in a mobile phone screen as on a computer, desktop computer with a large monitor. This does meet those. And it does have the ability to selectively control the access to each of the individual forums and to cross-link between them, which is an additional bonus, which has only just come to light. Now, it has other strengths. It has an active development team. Can you move on to the next screen, Ian? Right. Okay. I'll say a little bit more just quickly about FUD, because I lost track of where we were in this. It has a very active development team, but they're not active developers and actively developing new features. They're simply making sure that it continues doing what it's been doing for 20 years. So it's old-fashioned and clunky, but very capable of what it does. Anyway, we had two main priorities for this. We wanted to get something up and running to actually bring all of Metaforum's diverse community into greater cohesion if we could. So we want to particularly focus upon Metaforum's special interest groups, making it easy as possible for people to form new relationships, find each other, develop new projects potentially, just carry on climbing higher. But we have another objective. We want to bring multiple communities, all ethically aligned with each other, into a cohesive relationship as well. Now, this platform, it's capable of it with some additional work. There are workarounds, there are compromises to be made. It's not ideal, but it's what we have for the time being. It's what we have that provides a relatively low entry point for now, because there's a lot of work we need to be done. So we have interest from some other groups. One of these is the Schumacher Institute. I've been talking to my colleague, Richard Helen, who wanted to be here today, but can't. For 5 years, we've been talking about trying to develop some kind of platform which made it easier to find colleagues with relevant bits of knowledge and expertise. And this has the potential for helping with that. There's also another group I'm involved in, the Open Money Development Group, also very interested in using this platform. We do have interest from a couple of others. Oh, sorry, H3 Uni. Sorry, I forgot. That's another very important one. Very important that we actually have this support already nominally. We do also have interest expressed from other groups in the cybernetics community, but those are tentative. We can't really name them at this point. Okay, should we move on to the next slide? Oh, right. Okay. I think I've already talked about the recursive structures. We have ways of linking across, which we need to explore more fully, but we can actually achieve a long-term ambition of creating synergic connections between different organizations, because there's a huge amount of repetition and a lot of lost opportunities to actually form collaborations between organizations, because nobody knows what's going on everywhere.
Can I just come in for a moment, John?
Please do.
We've got these 3 words: connect, cohere, and amplify. They come originally from the work of Professor Sandra Waddock at Boston College as part of her work looking at transformation systems and transformations catalysts. So the idea of the community is that we have these, everybody's a member, everybody in this call is a member. If we can help the membership to connect, then to find each other and connect via what they're trying to do, to then cohere into groups or an overall group, and then amplify their variety together, then they amplify their agency. So those 3 words of connect, cohere, and amplify run throughout everything that we're doing here. John.
Okay. Can we move on to the next screen? Okay. Among the things it can do, it will enable people to find each other. Unfortunately, there's one limitation, which appears to be at the moment. It seems to be pretty much all or nothing, whether you're findable. So it's up to people to be, let's say, to attenuate what they themselves share. It's going to be within their own community. It'll be visible to everyone if they choose to share their contact details and so on. But beyond that, no. It might require some kind of additional system to deal with that kind of thing. So anyway, people can actually give a lot of indications about what they're looking for, what they're willing to share, how they would like to collaborate with others, anything that they might want to put in a profile. We hope that subsequently there will be a more powerful way of doing that, but this is to get us going. The next thing is to enable new groups to form and emerge, which we hope will follow from the first set above, and in particular the special interest groups formed around these dialogues. And beyond that, we want the platform to be able to provide a way of archiving and searching, finding, sharing all kind of useful materials within a common space, so that anything which is worth sharing can be done in a way which is reasonably attenuated in terms of variety. We don't want to overwhelm people with things that are of no interest to them. We want to make it easy for people, though, to find their way to things that other members of the community have shared. I think that's probably enough for that slide. Right, okay. I think part of this is being covered. It is surprisingly easy to use and configure. It's not too bad in terms of navigation and searching. It just requires a little bit of practice, probably about 10 or 20 minutes of playing with it to actually really understand what to do. It may be less for some people. It does, however, as it has the capacity to grow enormously. I mean, it could grow into a huge tree of nested categories and organizations, groups and projects and conversations. There is a massive amount to be managed in such a structure, and the governance needs to be appropriately distributed. We see this platform itself as being a useful tool in helping to represent that structure, in particular in applying the VSM to its overall governance at every level of recursion. Can we go to the next slide? Right. Ian, I think you were going to deal with this slide, weren't you?
Yeah. So we got this functionality. What can it do for Metaforum? Well, it has a diverse community which is both knowledgeable and experienced, and connecting that community together in new ways so that it can interact rapidly seems to be significant. The whole community would have the potential for much higher agency if it were more fully connected, cohered, and indeed amplified. We believe there are opportunities and challenges that Metaforum would be better able to address if the community were well coordinated, so that it's coherent and it can amplify itself. And the opportunity to do just that, to amplify the variety of this community, both individually and collectively, sits here. Now, one of the questions we said was, why do it now? And it always feels like it's the right time. But actually, if we look at the emergent trends and uncertainties in the environment, it feels that those things that we face right now and the future we're facing, maybe this really is the right time to do this. Where are we with implementation? We have an implementation installed and running right now at that URL address that you'll see there. You will be getting the slides. An initial architecture is in place which demonstrates recursion and nested dialogue, demonstrates special interest groups, the curation of VSM and TS materials, member profiles. One thing about the member profiles is they are fully configurable. You don't just get a standard thing saying, here's the member profile, fill it in. We can decide what we would like to have in the member profiles. And as always with such information, you configure it by what you want to search for, what you want to be able to find. So it might be we want to be able to find somebody with this particular skill set, with that particular experience in this particular geography. So we would configure member profiles in that way. We can demonstrate the searching ability and the communication to members, to groups, to forums and topics. Now, we've said quite a few times that this is a recursive system. Now, the recursion levels, we start out with a category. Within a category, we have forums. Within forums, we have topics. And within topics, we have various threads and so on and so forth. Now, the other thing you can do is you can have a group which is a group of people who have access to particular forums for their particular work and so on. So we can manage quite complex relationships, and we can also demonstrate polls. It has a basic calendar function, which is there and present, and a few other things as well. But that's sort of where we're up to for right now. Now, we're now going to take a look at the platform that we're talking about. John's going to talk us through that. It's an initial configuration only for early testing. Now, a critical point here is the overall structure will be developed as we go. What we're kicking off here is a 13-week trial of this platform to see how we get on with it and to learn from it and to figure out where we go from there, okay? So it's important that we actually interact with this platform and interact with each other. Now, when we say we develop it as we go, this is not a situation where we in the center decide what the structure will be and who will do what and what access you will have and what categories we'll have and so on. That's not the way. The way we're starting is to kickstart it by actually starting doing just that, but then immediately open it out. So for instance, the notion of special interest groups, now at the conference, we identified, if I recall correctly, 9 special interest groups we'd like to see. We've since thought about a lot more. If you would like to have a special interest group on the platform that you want to talk about this, just surface it and we can do that. Each special interest group will have to have a convener who will actually identify the notion of what the special interest group is about, and the initial membership to come in and to potentially facilitate the online sessions and so on. Okay, so special interest groups is a particular case in point. The other thing we've got is that we can look at things like the repository where you can store documents. You can do those within a category, or you can do that for the whole platform itself. So I'm going to stop sharing screen, John, so that you can now load up what you need to load up and pass across to you.
Okay, I'll just initiate the screen share on the different machine. Okay. Just need
Oh,
to...
I can see everybody now.
Right. Okay, this should appear in a moment.
Got it.
Do I need to enlarge this? Is it large enough to see? Is that large enough to read?
We put thumbs up if we can see it, okay? Thanks.
Okay. Right. At the moment, this is what somebody will see if they just come to the homepage. It's what's called a responsive theme in terms of layout. It doesn't look too bad in a mobile phone, but it's still going to look a bit ugly, old-fashioned, whatever you're looking at it. But that's not really what matters. What matters is what it does. Now, what you can see here is a collection of categories that are nested. They're not nested to a great depth, but we've got them just down to a certain extent, and they can be opened up. We have things on technology with a subsection on AI, for example, that goes down into their things. Sorry, there should be a sub one on AI intermediate to that, which isn't showing. We haven't really got into populating most of these yet, but we've been playing with one. We picked one at random, which is the application of the VSM to the governance of decentralized autonomous organizations, and we just played around it a little bit. So, picking this one up here in terms of technology, I created a new topic on a system called Ethereum, which is really a blockchain system used for fairly early experimentations in DAOs. And just made some example posts here. I just put in this basic question: what is Ethereum? And Ian put in this reply. We just put these things back and forth, experimenting with what we could include, links, attachments. Just uploaded the first file that came to hand. That's what we've really got with that so far. So if I just go back here, and by experiment by just creating a new topic. Now let's call this maybe smart contracts. It might already be one. I'm not sure. The description is optional. I create topic. That should be there. So I'll just type in a question here. Okay, that then appears here. Now, you notice there are two options here: post quick reply, or actually reply. There should be one just actually provides a more detailed reply. That would be that one. That's what I would normally use. So I'm going to reply to myself, which is a bit egotistical. That's not really a good answer. I should probably put something like decentralized, but we're not here to be accurate. We're here just to show how to use it. Now, these are very, very, very basic. This is just a very basic bulletin board system. It's its additional capabilities above its more recent and prettier counterparts that make it interesting. We can, for the convenience of many participants, synchronize each of these forums to a mailing list, which means people can, if they're in a hurry, or if they just prefer it, interact via email. But that's a limiting technology. It reduces what can be done, but so does using the quick reply system. So if I go back here, I can put a message straight into this and post a quick reply. Doesn't allow me to put any attachments in. I can't put any links in. I can't use any clever formatting. So it's a bit different. Now, we could at this point start playing around with putting messages back and forth, but I'd just like to take a diversion to show you the powerful administration system. Almost everything in this can be configured in tremendous detail. Here we have ways of creating categories. This is what we have currently in terms of the nested category structure. They can be moved around. They can each be moved from one location to another as the demands of the tree emerge. We can also move any forum from within one category to another, and there's quite a lot more we can do here. This gives administrators individual control of a particular forum. So a forum will typically have a set of administrators and moderators who will determine the rules of use of that forum. Now, we will be providing a fairly typical example for people to use, but there may be special requirements that some groups have. Now, there are quite a lot of functions we've never tested here, but one of the nice ones we have is the ability to export the content of any discussion thread as a quite nicely formatted PDF document. So any member of a conversation can at any time take a PDF snapshot for their own use. And of course, it's up to the administrators of that group to determine the rules under which that can be done. I don't think there's a lot of point in me going into detail of these individual configurations. I just wanted to give you an idea of the richness of it. Anytime I can go back into the configuration, we're back to the home page again. Do you think we need to cover any more at this stage, Ian, or are we ready to go back to?
Well, when we first looked at this, we did what we did with every platform that we looked at, which was to test it and look through what the capabilities actually were, and look through the what's the word I'm looking for? The thoroughness of the documentation of what you can and what you can't do. And we spent a couple of days looking at the things that John's just shown, going through them item by item. And that's when we realized what this platform can actually do. It's very difficult to ascertain what it can do just by looking at what you see on screen right now. But actually, if you look at what the system can do in terms of its handling complexity, in terms of the flexibility that it gives us, it can do a whole lot, which really, really surprised us. And in terms of testing, what we've done is leading up to the conference in May and very early June for that matter, we spent a lot of time testing it and actually building a platform And then we have not brought that forward because that was us testing it to reach our conclusions. And now we're actually about to go into the live phase, as it were. The other thing I'd like to cover is that when we were talking about this at the conference, the question was, is this a decision to implement this platform forever? And the answer to that is no, it isn't. This is a learning exercise to see what we learn by actually doing this for real. And we talked about how long should that trial last, as it were. And we settled on 13 weeks, which is an odd number, until actually it's just 3 months, is what it actually means, okay? So, and the proposition is to start that 3 months, basically a week on Monday on the 25th, okay? So that's where we're at. And by then we will have configured more special interest groups and have it in a state ready to go. We did not want to jump the gun. What we did want to do is to test it properly, which we believe we have done, and then to bring it forward here.
We also want to use this platform to engage people in discussing how to use it, how to develop it, how to extend it.
Mm-hmm.
It is actually extendable in ways we haven't begun to explore, because it provides very detailed documentation about how to write plugins, for example. And I've had a good look around the source code, so I can see that it's actually very cleanly designed internally and wouldn't be too much of a challenge for those sufficiently motivated to extend it in other ways that I hadn't really considered until now.
Okay. I'm going to stop the screen share, John, because I want to come back now. Is that okay?
Just a moment.
No, I can do it from here. It's okay.
Sorry.
I'm going to go back to where we were, which was here on the original screen sharing. I'm going to look at this. When we've been planning this, we have a timeline for what it is that we're trying to do here. So you can see here that phase 1 preparation, it actually commenced, by the way, in June of this year, not on August the 14th, but actually preparing this, what you're seeing today, started on August the 14th. I should be able to zoom in a bit of look. I can do this. You can do this in PowerPoint slideshow mode now. So this is a typical timeline that we develop with projects like this. The blue bits are inputs and outputs. The yellow bits here are the process, and the platform assets that come out are the orange bits. So I don't know whether you can read this or not. Let me just see. Does it go back? Well, can I? No, it goes that, and that's all I can get. Okay. So we convened a core group to discuss and agree the structure, including the SIGs. That's been done. We took key questions into that. We agreed a structure for the platform. We're now configuring it. We're going to communicate that plan to the Metaforum community. That's what we're doing right now. We will have an agreed plan for the 13-week trial. That's what this is. And you can see it goes through phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4. I'm not going to go into more detail from that, but this timeline will be available on the platform so you can see the progress as we go through the process. And as we go live, we fully expect to actually generate new aspects of the process that we haven't anticipated. This is an active learning exercise. Okay, that's really what we're doing here. Now, if I come out of that now, that's where we're up to with this one. Now, we want to talk briefly about the work we could look at for multiple community platform. Now, for other interested organizations, and we've said that we already have some, we see the same structural possibilities for each separate community, but they can configure their community how they wish. The structure that we have is a structure that we're putting forward as a starting point for Metaforum. They may want to have different things. I am, for instance, a member of H3 Uni. We've been talking to H3 Uni about what they would like if they were to use this platform, and they will structure their internal systems very differently to Metaforum's and be very specific to themselves, but it will sit on the same platform. We want to help them configure the nested special interest groups, and we also need to recruit and organize a moderation team. Now, right now, the team that's looking at this whole aspect is John, Trevor Hilder, and myself. And we are looking to start the moderation process. We would hope that as we go along, we would ask other people to come and help with the moderation. I personally have done a lot of moderation online communities, and it needs a bit of effort, but it can be easy to do. getting the codes of conduct right and all those things are what we're focusing on to actually make that job as easy as possible and actually start using it. Okay. So John, I think it's back to you now. I'll stop the share. If you would like to show us briefly an online platform that is not Metaforum, but actually reflects these kinds of principles.
Indeed. Give me just a moment while I find my tab. Okay. Okay, we have a separate domain, and we were stumped for a name. And being in a hurry, I plucked one out of the air, Metapositive, because we'd been using the word quite a lot to describe our approach. It's very convenient. We can use subdomains for each organization. Now, the one here, I'm just going to enlarge that a bit. It's sorry, bit small. But in front of the metapositive.net, we can have an organizational subdomain for each. I've already created these for H3 Uni, TSI, that's the Schumacher Institute, and OMDev, which is the Open Money Development Group. We anticipate others wanting to come alongside. So we propose migrating the one we have under metaforum.org into metapositive.net simply for to be alongside the ethically aligned organizations. And we've already discussed that. It's been agreed. So that's the approach we're going to take. Because each organization has a separate FUD forum installation, they can be customized quite highly. So the colors you see here are just an example. Each organization can customize its own FUD forum installation in many ways. In many ways we haven't even begun to experiment with. Now, what you can see here, you'll notice there are a collection of VSM categories, simply because we're experimenting with what we could do as a way of maintaining variables and other information relating to different aspects of a meta system for any organization. We don't want to go into details at this point, just wanted to actually show you the kind of things we can do. You've already seen the nature of the recursive structures that this can handle. In due course, I hope we'll be able to develop a meta layer to bind them all together even more completely. But that's not crucial, and it's not a priority. It just might be an enhancement in due course. I'm not going to show you the examples I've set up for TSI and H3 Uni and OMDev, because when I checked, I realized that although I'd copied the raw data across from an earlier version, the actual populated tree isn't visible for reasons I shan't go into right now. I think that's really all there is to say on this for now, because it's basically the same system. And this is another nice feature, because it's a basic off-the-shelf system that can be installed by in a couple of clicks for any new organization that wants one. It's just very convenient, and it can be used for applications at much closer to ground level, should we want them. And in the case of Schumacher Institute, for example, a lot of the applications are going to be at community level rather than closer to planetary level. But that's rather too much detail to go into for now. But it does give us a huge amount of flexibility we wouldn't have otherwise if we put this into a single tree as we'd originally intended. Okay, I think, is there anything I need to add at this point, Ian, do you think?
No, I'm going to stop the share and just come back to where we can all see each other. In summary, what we've got is a platform that allows us to configure it. It allows recursive structures. It allows us to deal with multiple communities, and it allows us to have a repository One of the things we were concerned about, this whole notion of recursive structures, I think is very close to all of our hearts. So we're looking to be able to implement that as we go. Where we're up to right now is we've tested it. We believe we're ready to go. We want to start the actual real life 13-week trial a week on Monday or Tuesday, which is the 25th. And week on Monday is the 25th. And by then we want to have the special interest groups populated and ready to go. We have from the conference the list of special interest groups and the people who would like to be in each of those special interest groups. So we'll be looking to actually move that forward. This is not a sort of central system being controlled to say this is what it's got, this is how it's going to be. We want to get it started, up and running and moving forward, and then via feedback and interest from folks actually develop the structure of it and the configuration of it as we go. As John said, we're very keen that this is we either had an open source platform where we had good access to the source code and we validated that the open source code itself was of a high standard and that the documentation that comes with it is of a high standard and that it is stable and that it isn't actually stable but redundant and is no longer being used. The last upgrade to the system, the last release came out earlier this year. So this may be 20 years old. As we point out, it's not a super glamorous looking product, but functionally it allows us to support the human interactions that a community is all about, and especially one that Metaforum is all about, where it is the human interactions that develop the emergent properties that actually move things forward. So that's what we're looking to implement here. I have one more slide for now. Oh, by the way, the slide deck we will share has 3 slides at the end, which goes through the evaluation that we've done on the open source code to validate it and to make sure it's okay. Here is our only other slide. There. Q&A.
Well, thank you, Ian, and thank you, John, for this really nice work that you have been doing and this proposal for the community. So let's invite people, questions, comments, suggestions. Who would like to start? Will you please put your hands up when you have a comment or a question? Raise your hands. Shan, would you like to comment?
Yeah, I can say what I've written in is basically my life is under a lot of stress from all the different platforms that I'm currently using, and you know them all. I don't need to go through them. So is there anything that this could ultimately replace? That I could say I no longer have to use Slack, or I don't have to use any of all the emails that are coming in, and and then there are all the some people are on WhatsApp. I'm not, but I use Matrix, so that's another platform where there's all these messages coming at me all the time. And I totally understand. I love the idea. The recursive notion is really brilliant, and it fits with an awful lot of the ethos. But does it replace anything, Ian, or is it more?
I hate to say what people say while they're getting room for thinking, but that's a really great question, Sean. I know people use that as thinking space. It's as I said at the beginning, I suffer from platform fatigue. If I see not another platform I've got to learn how to use, really? You expect me to do that? Why should I bother? It is sort of the important thing for me. And I think there's several reasons why to bother. One, this is a community around cybernetics and specifically around the viable system. So it's where you're going to get connected with most, well, not necessarily most people, but certainly a broad range of people in that community. But look here, Elena is here, Andrew is here, John Walker would be here, and so on and so on and so on. So that doesn't necessarily replace other systems, but it gives access to a specific network. Not only that, it gives access to a specific network that can configure itself into groups. So you might be interested in the VSM, but you might be interested in that particular area there, okay? And the group, you might be able to find a group. If you can't find a group, but you want to be able to generate a group to help you with a project that you're on, it can do that. You can search for people with particular skills, okay? You can search for people who are actually looking for what you're looking for to see whether you've got a case study that might be able to help you. So it will do all those types of things. Now, you might say, well, you can do that with LinkedIn, okay? You might say that as an example. Yes, you may be able to do part of that with LinkedIn, but as always, not as always, but often it's the overall package that you're looking at that provides the distinction. I personally find it frustrating to the point of almost banging my head against the wall, looking through very long email trails, trying to find the one that had the particular URL I was looking for. I find that infuriating. So it can help replace some of that as well, because you can go to the focus group that you're looking for and find it, and you'll find that they've stored it and so on and so forth, okay? And also in terms of having assets. So if we had a repository on the platform, which we can do, which would have case studies, for instance, and if the case studies were separated out into case studies for this, case studies for that, case studies for this, then you might be able to find something like that, which you'd find difficulty elsewhere. So I don't know whether that answers your question or not, or whether it was just a long ramble, but there you are, Sean.
Another thing is that platforms such as Slack have a tendency to suddenly disappear or suddenly start making participation difficult. They don't make migration easy. We wanted something which would enable people to very easily take a copy of any conversation they've been involved in at any time on the terms defined by the administrators of that group. It's also useful that for those who are suffering from platform fatigue, they can at least, where it's provided, use the lowest common denominator of email as a way of interacting with it without having to go through the process of logging in. It's not something we want to encourage because it's a limiting way of doing things, but it is another option to enable people to interact with things, particularly if they're on the move.
Right.
It's quite flexible, but yes, it is a real problem, this proliferation of channels.
Thanks, John. David had his hand up for quite a few minutes. So David, if that's okay.
Yes, it was. Thank you. Ken. It was really to actually follow on from what you've just been saying about case studies. As a non-academic person, more or less recently, in the last 3 or 4 years, involved with Metaforum, I would find that particularly useful to have access to good practice, current practice, new ideas, case studies, practical papers of various kinds from people who are currently active, as well as past papers. Now, my question is, how is that going to be populated in the system? How will that happen?
There's several aspects to that, David. One is that we envisage having a sort of central repository, and we've said that should have case studies, academic papers, presentations, videos, webinars, those type of things that you can find very quickly. That could be populated in different ways. It could be populated by somebody saying, I'd like to put this in repository, and they have the permission to put it in the repository. Okay. It could also be that you have those documents, those videos, whatever they are, in the special interest group that you are in. So they're not necessarily in the overall repository, but they're in the group that you're in. You don't have to come out of the group you're in and put it in the repository and then go and find it again. Okay. So it's flexible. Does that answer your question?
Yes, that partly. So if somebody has a special interest group that has a paper relevant to their area of interest, will that be generally available to people within the system?
Right. There's two aspects to that. One is that as a special interest group could just be for a closed group of people, and they're the only people that have access to that special interest group. Okay. And that's to do with permissions. And it can be configured that way. Or it can be that other people can access that special interest group and see what's there. Okay. It's flexible. And this is one of those things where you'll notice that my avatar is this fellow here. I don't know how familiar that chap is with you. That's Gromit, who's
Yes, I'm familiar with that. Yeah.
He puts the track down in front of him as he goes. Okay. Now, I'm not suggesting that we do that. Okay. What I am suggesting, however, is that when these things arise, you say, look, we've got a decision to make here. Should we do it this way or that way? And as a community, we can learn together how we would like to do it, and then ascertain whether the system will enable us to do that, and then do it. And then learn from it and say, actually, that wasn't the best way to do it. We might want to do it a different way. Okay.
Okay.
No,
So that's all part of the learning process, really.
I certainly believe so. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Gary's got his hand up. Just quick, Gary. There's a question from Kelsey, which I'd like to come back to after yourself, Gary, if that's okay. Kelsey, I've noted your question in the chat box. Gary.
Okay. Yes. There's a question and a comment. The question is, all this recursive groups and subgroups, etc. If I'm part of a special interest group and we've got a subgroup that wants to do some extra discussions, can we set up the subgroup, the recursive subgroup, or do we have to ask a higher an administrator for the whole thing, you or John, for example? That's the question. And the comment is that I think the saying this thing is there is great, but you're going to have to find groups of people who say, yes, I want to talk to so and so and so and so and so and so about something, and we will use this platform as a thing. You need your groups first. But you just having it there isn't going to make it happen.
Yeah, I completely agree with the second point you're making, Gary. Now, in terms of would Gary be able to set up a special interest group or a subgroup or what have you? Okay, that we've had dialogue around that between ourselves to say what's the best way of doing this. My experience is that if you allow anybody to set up a new group, what often happens is 3 people decide to create the same group at the same time, doing similar things and aren't aware of each other. That can happen. So there needs to be some, for want of a better word, formality to how these things are done. So what in the past we've done is you ask a moderator, I'd like one of these, please. Can you make it happen for me? Okay. Now that's if you wanted to have a complete category. If you want to set up a topic inside your forum, no, you can do that. You don't need special permission.
Specific people.
I'm sorry?
But like, where at what point do the people get changed? I mean, is a subgroup, a recursive subgroup, is it have different people? Just a subset of the people, for example, or what?
Well, it might be a subset of people, but it might be a subset of the topic.
Right.
It depends which way you feel it might be organized. If you've got a subtopic, which is a subset of the major topic, it might be a subgroup goes off and investigates that and comes back and reports and so on. Okay. It has the flexibility to cope with either way.
A major advantage of this platform is the ease with which we can create new topics to avoid people going off into irrelevancies, going off topic, as it were. And it also the ease with which new categories and new forums can be created and nested so that the variety can be managed as the overall collection of conversations grows. This is another advantage that we didn't find anywhere else. But this does involve a lot of human interaction in terms of the management. But that's going to be the case with any platform that people use. So that's not a disadvantage. That's just the nature of a large-scale collection of conversations.
As a specific example, the DAO and VSM special interest group, we chose that out of the 9 special interest groups that came forward from the conference. That will need to have a convener. We're calling it a convener. It's a sort of a facilitator, a convener. And this afternoon, I had a conversation with John Walker because it's something of particular interest to him, whether he would like to be that convener. And he agrees in principle. Okay, he agrees in principle. Now, one of the other things that we have discussed at quite some length is the Santiago Boys podcast series, which is getting a lot of very strong reactions And the strong reactions are on a scale, okay? There's a strong reactions, okay? So by the 26th, when Metaforum has its webinar with Evgeny, we will have a special interest group set up for the Santiago boys so that we can talk about that, we can share resources. I don't know about everybody else. I have had such a lot of URLs sent to me, not just about the Santiago boys, but about the coup in Chile and the new article that's appeared in the Statesman or the Economist or what have you. I would like to be able to gather that. I've got videos on the Chile coup going back 30 years now. So that's a typical one that arises, and that we would like to look at that. And Trevor, I think you've sort of said you might be keen to help out with convening that.
Yeah, I'm happy to lead that if people think appropriate. Yeah.
I would like to, if that's okay, to be in that group and to moderate that group as I'm leading the CyberScene webinar series with all the other organizations.
Okay.
Right.
No issue with that at all, Angela. We're just very conscious that you're loaded very heavily right now. That was the only reason. Okay.
Well, I'm just working full time in this topic, so I would like to be part of this group, yes.
Sure. Now, one thing we didn't share with you is that on the DAOs and VSM, we actually have an introductory piece of that to explain what it is about. So that, and if you're wondering what it, with some URLs giving you access to various articles and videos, including the video by Angela and John on DAOs and VSMs as well. Okay, so we've made a bit more progress than we might have actually shown. If it's okay, I'd like to go to the question from Kelsey, if you're okay with that, Kelsey.
Yeah, of course.
Would you like to tell us what your question is, Kelsey, rather than me just reading it out?
Okay, good. I'm unmuted. Sure, I would love to. So I guess the context for my question was having read some of the case studies you've done in the past about disintegration and this broader theme of kind of group coordination around decision making, and particularly in relation to some research I've been doing on attention economies and also AI and deployment of LLMs and language learning models in various forums. At a very high level, I'm interested in how groups of people surface their particular preferences or beliefs or boundaries in various contexts. And I'm wondering if you think this forum or this platform might be useful to test in relation to that over the next few weeks. So at the most simple level, is it a forum for making decisions or for interacting and building relationships and sharing information?
I think the answer is it depends what the decision's about. Really, certainly whilst we're learning our way into this. And Kelsey, I am very, very keen on the concept that there is no one universal right way to make a decision. It depends on the context, and having multiple perspectives on a decision, I feel, is really, really important. So I would be very keen to work on decision-making on the platform. That would have to be within certain boundaries around Metaforum. And what the decision is about, really, about whether the group has the authority stroke autonomy to actually make that particular decision or not.
Sure, that makes sense. I'm happy to send more information and even kind of draft written pieces as well about different decision-making contexts in relation to how data is used, and that actually might be relevant to this community and this platform.
Yeah. I personally am interested in that. And so is David Beattie by the looks of it as well. The big thumbs up. There you go. Right, we've got a question from Brian, which is actually directly to me. Brian, I'm not going to break confidence, which means I'm going to, just to share your question, because I think it's a good question. Will there be in collective meeting tutorials during the 13-week period? The answer to that is yes. One of the things that we intend to do is to do a video showing how to use the platform and so on and so forth, which will go further than we've gone in this call right now. So you have that as a resource. And also, if people are coming alongside, it's not enough to just, as we've just said, saying, here it is, off you go. That doesn't work. We've got to energize, or as my American colleagues would say, animate the platform as well. So those 9 special interest groups will be a way of helping us to do that. And those 9 special interest groups will need to learn their way into actually using the platform. We need to make that as easy as possible. And that's been one of the key criteria that we've been searching for, is an easy to use platform that you don't have to spend forever to try and figure out how to use it, that you can get started quickly. It's a long-winded answer, Brian, but basically, yes.
Thanks.
Hey, Hans-Peter.
Hello. Angela, can I say something now?
Yes, please, of course.
I appreciated that BlazeFast was mentioned in the beginning, and that Ian and John confirmed that we all, that there is support for the development of BlazeFast. I just wanted to make a few comments for those who don't know BlazeFast. First of all, it's not just ethos that brings us together, it's also a mission that brings us together. The key thing is that we who are working on this are very concerned about the planetary emergency, not just climate change, the loss of wildlife, the pollution that we have, overpopulation, and many other things. And we think there is urgency that something happens as soon as possible. That's why we put the platform out. Before it was fully developed, it's still not fully developed, but there are many parts now that are operational. For example, the case studies were mentioned. We have a case study tool, and we are using this case study tool right now for a big case study in Grenada to inform the government what needs to be done to be prepared for an uncertain future. And we will use, we are using the platform for mapping of stakeholders, hazards, fragilities, and we reach out to all the stakeholders, 110,000 people in Grenada through the platform, and organize stakeholder meetings through the platform. We have also, in the recent months, we have developed the My File system where everybody can upload their files and then share it with others. We have a direct messaging system that is almost as good as WhatsApp, and it will soon be better than WhatsApp. And so we are not relying on email anymore. We are really internally doing things. And it's very easy if you have a virtual community center to set up a library and put things in the library and share those things then with other libraries. It's very easy to find a document platform-wide, whether it's there. People can be discovered very easily. So the platform has been evolving a lot. And yesterday we started to make it suitable for mobile equipment. And I think next week you will see it really nice on your smartphone. It's very easy to do these things. And it has all the recursions that FAT Forum has. It's very easy to have nested structures. And so if anyone wants to understand what BlazeFast can do, so I'm inviting you to come and look at BlazeFast. I'm not trying to pull anyone away, but we are actually doing the climbing that we saw in the first picture. We have by now, I think, 25 volunteers from all over the world that are trying to help us and are programming and working with us and looking at cybersecurity and all those things. So the more people are willing to work with us, the better it is, and the faster BlazeFast will be available. We are very concerned, and I think we are not alone with this, that the social media that we have currently are a threat to democracy, and we are trying to build something that will support democracy. So, for example, we have a governance floor. A virtual community center can have a governance floor, and you can set up whatever you want as your governance structure, a board, a steering committee, working groups, or whatever you need to have your governance. So we are thinking about all of this, and we need the input from the Meta Forum community, because you understand many of those things much better than the people who are currently working on it. So I really hope that some of you want to spend some time with us and helping us that, for example, the governance floor is really what is needed to have a global citizen movement that can help us to address the planetary emergency and keep at least some parts of the world free parts.
Thank you very much, Hans-Peter. With no doubt, I think that there has been a lot of conversations outside this between Place for Us and Metaforum, and I really hope that Place for Us will continue to be an inspiration for us, and that sooner or later we will be able to join Place for Us as well, and people will be using as well Place for Us. So
Can I say one more thing?
yeah.
Since yesterday, we have a virtual community center that we call CyberSyn 3.0. And this is something that comes partly from companies in Australia that are building sensors for the whole globe. And they want to be in this, and we want to bring the governance people together with them so that we have the tools, the equipment, and then we need the governance people. So if anybody wants to work on CyberSyn 3.0, that would be really very good if Metaforum would be active in that.
Okay, wonderful.
Quick question to Hans-Peter. What activity is there going on now? Are there groups actively using it now?
We have a number of groups. Yes, one, for example, is a government group in Grenada. That is, we have to prepare a strategy document for the Prime Minister, and this group is working on it. And we have also groups that are addressing marine debris. We have another group that is just starting zoology, and this group is going to look at the problem that 2/3 of the population in the world is not connected to sewage systems. So we are really, I think we are getting more groups being active.
Good.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. So I cannot see more questions. Ian, John, can you see any more questions?
I can't see any more. I just wanted to make a comment.
Yes.
I think Place for Us is more ambitious, and the sooner it's ready, the better from our point of view. We have I won't say, well, I don't want to say temporary solution, but that's what it is. It's something to bridge the gap between where we are in terms of large-scale participation and the kind of larger scale participation we anticipate in due course for Place for Us. So, and even after that, I think there may still be room for a while for both to work alongside each other. So I think, I hope we'll be able to develop techniques for connecting them across and engaging more people without placing additional load on Place for Us, because scalability is an issue we both have to consider in some detail, I think. So I think we have a lot of collaboration ahead of us in working out exactly what needs to be done and how to integrate these approaches to our common benefit.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much. Ian, any final comments before we finish?
No, I'm done. Gary has his hand raised again. Okay,
Gary, go on.
Sorry, I seem to be having all these questions. This is a question to John Waters and Michael Linton. In my vision of the kind of support that I'm looking for a community, an awful lot of it can be done by the facility, by discussion and various ancillary things to that, like document sharing and voting. One thing which is I would like to see as well is an exchange system, of mutual credit. I know John Waters is working on one which is based on Michael Linton's Open Money, and I'd ask the two of you, where are there prospects for something like that coming along and being integrated into this system?
Well, I don't know where other prospects are. I've seen other projects attempting to do various things, but in my opinion, they're inadequately ambitious. They're not looking very high. The Nest project that I've been working on for a while is very much aligned to the same structure, recursively nested governance. The ability to create arbitrary measures and counts of any type, the ability to support any kind of agent, whether it's humans, organizations, or robots, or sensors, or controls, all of them having a place within it, the ability to actually process information. So whereas Place for Us and FUD Forum are orientated towards conversations between humans and groups of people, it's about exchanging ideas, Nests in parallel is about distributing and processing and filtering information. And I think the two are just completely aligned, which is why I saw from the start the potential in both cases of bringing them all together. And developing localized payment systems and arbitrary currencies of the type that you want, that is just an automatic feature built into Nests.
I'd put it in short. Go forth and multiply.
Yeah.
It's a very productive platform. There's a high variety matching between the tool and the task. I'm delighted to see all this work. Thank you very much, all of you, for this amazing contribution. Thank you.
Just to add a bit more, Gary, one of the things I've mentioned before to you, but not to everyone else here, is one of the features which is unique to Nests is the ability to support what I call vector currencies. It can actually be used to create multidimensional information preserving currencies, which in this context is simply a variable type.
Yeah.
But it can be used to distribute signals, including algorithmic signals, around a network. Anyway.
So, sorry, Michael, were you saying go forth and multiply is the name of a system which is available?
No, it's a shorthand for spread your seed in all directions. It's a replication meme. It's basically, if this isn't fun, it's not sexy.
And John, is there going to be an implementation of Nests available which could be integrated with platform?
Yes. It can be and anything else. So, well, I'm working on it, but there's only one of me, and I'm working on it. But
I'm conscious that we're very close to time. I'm conscious that we're very close to time.
Okay, can I just answer that one question? Any web application in which an iframe can be built, that's simply a little window in a web page which can host an independent glimpse into a page, can be used to very easily interact with Nests.
Dave Metham has had his hand up for a little while, so
I'm sorry,
Dave.
Hello, Ian and John. I'm just interested, as we come to the end of the meeting, in just what the next step is. So at the conference, I had been involved in a couple of groups or special interest groups. And what is the next step to try and build today into the list that we had at the end of the conference?
What we will be doing is setting up those special interest groups as put forward at the conference and invite the members that have said, I'd like to be part of that particular special interest groups to come and join, okay? To get us started. The intention is that we have that done by a week on Monday, so next week, so that we can actually get started. One of those will be around the Santiago Boys, as we've just said earlier, which wasn't one of the special interest groups at the conference, all right? So that's what we'll do to actually get started. In terms of what's coming out of this call right now, yes, the questions, so I'm very interested in what Kelsey is talking about decision-making, okay? I'm not going to repeat what I said. Decision-making is a really important topic. It's time to just get on with it.
Okay, so that will be an email, presumably, or something that will trigger something for us.
You might get an invitation from the platform.
Yes, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, but how? That's all right. But how do I make sure I'm on the platform to receive it?
No, that's for us to do. We'll do that.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Lovely.
Right, Brian has his hand up, and I think we've got 1 minute, so it needs to be quick, Brian.
Can you send an email listing the SIGs? I wasn't at the meeting at the last day of the conference, so I'm not sure what they are.
Yeah. Yes. The answer is yes, we can. And actually, yes, we will.
Okay. Thank you.
Back to you, Angela.
Thank you very much for this meeting, Ian and John, and for the work that you have been doing. I'm sure that this is going to be an exciting project for all of us, and we'll be learning together a lot. So looking forward for your email and instructions on how to kick out all the conversations in the platform. And looking forward to see you in the next webinar. The next webinar is the Evgeny Morozov webinar on the 26th of September, and then Raúl Espejo's webinar on the 29th of September. And then we have John Beckford's on the 4th, Wednesday, the 4th of October. So we are going to have 3 webinars very close to each other. And then you will have seen the list of webinars, the other webinars in November and December. We will be finishing, we have Massimo De Angelis in November with talking about the commons, VSM and the commons. And then we have the last one is again the screening on the CyberSyn project that Basam and Jose Carlos are going to be doing again for us that they did in the conference, but we're going to have a wider discussion about that. So thank you very much, and looking forward to see you on the 26th. For those who want to come to the Evgeny Morozov webinar, please notice that there is a Miro board open for people to put questions. We're going to receive questions in advance. We're expecting a larger number of people because we have invited all the cybernetic and systems societies. So it's going to be hopefully a larger discussion. So please contribute to the Miro board that you will have seen the link in the emails. So thank you and see you very soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.